Thank you for being here. Thanks for coming to the festival. Thanks for being here this morning. So, in light of current events, Jimmy could not make it this morning, but...
So you got me.
Yes. Very, very happy and grateful to have Bozoma here. So, I've been covering marketing and advertising for years, and does anyone here work in marketing and advertising? Okay, amazing. So you'll know what I'm saying. Every time I talk to someone, could be a copywriter, could be a chief creative officer, they tell this story about working in advertising, and whenever they're at a wedding or they're on a plane and they're kind of stuck talking to somebody and the topic of like, oh, what do you do? Comes up and they say advertising. Then they get basically whoever they're talking to telling them how good either they would be in advertising or what's wrong with all the advertising in the world.
Yes.
So
personal experience also.
It's something that probably doesn't happen to engineers and accountants and stuff, but so that discipline of advertising is such a thing where people kind of either are complaining about it or think they could do it. So. Boz, you and Jimmy have this show, On Brand, which launches on NBC on September 30th.
Yes, yay.
And it is a perfect, to me, it's just the concept alone is like, this is that conversation essentially put to the test.
Yeah.
Real brands, I mean, there's KitchenAid, Marshalls, Pillsbury, Samsung, Sonic, Dunkin', Southwest, Captain Morgan, and Therabody all involved here. So. And
sounds like a regular Tuesday in the advertising world.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, if you're lucky. So I want to rewind because it feels like when I saw this, it was like this is like an obviously fun idea.
Yeah.
How did this opportunity come about? How did the idea come about for the show?
Well, Jimmy had concepted the idea and sold it probably a year before we had a conversation.
Okay.
And I think the challenge that he was facing was that, of course, he's a genius at what he does every day, commenting about pop culture and making all kinds of, creative partnerships and that type of thing. But what he would say is that he doesn't have the resume, the chops, the professional corporate chops to back it up. And so he needed a partner to add legitimacy to the show. And then he saw me on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
All right.
And his wife said, what about Boz? And he was like, I don't know if a housewife is what I'm looking for.
For that legitimacy.
Exactly, for the legitimacy part. But of course, after we got on a call together and we talked about the idea and what it could mean and how much I love the concept, and not just that, it's like your example in the beginning where it's like, look, every time I've been at a cocktail party or on a plane or in an elevator where somebody knows what I do for a living, they always have an idea for me, always. I'm being pitched constantly. It's like when I was at Netflix, it's like, okay, look, somebody has a movie idea for sure, or how to advertise for some film. Or when I was at Apple, people had ideas about how to talk about Apple Music or, what artists to work with. And so that to me is like my lived experience. And so I told him that the concept of marrying those two things, advertising and marketing as an entertainment platform, which can engage an audience, I was like, shoot, you better sign me up. Otherwise, I'm just coming to set anyway. Yeah. Like I'm showing up regardless. So.
Well, you have a bit of a connection with Jimmy on that same level. We were just talking backstage when you were talking about. Well, maybe you tell them what you told me about Apple Music.
The Apple Music,
and how that made you
Oh my gosh, okay, so when we launched Apple Music now 10 years ago, which I literally cannot believe, I mean, it had been sleepless months of, lots of work, lots of stress to get the product out, and as the head of marketing, everything was a big risk, Not just like creating the ads that would tell you what streaming music was. Because again, let's just rewind 10 years. Nobody understood what streaming was. It did not exist as a concept. So we were trying to teach an audience who were buying one song for 99 cents that they could have the entire catalog of every song ever recorded on the face of the earth at their fingertips. And the day it launched, I'm sitting at home. I have a glass of champagne in my hand because I'm like, whoo, thank the Lord, it's out in the world. And I'm watching, late night TV, and here comes Jimmy Fallon. And he's talking about Apple Music and how amazing it is. And the crazy thing is, I actually have like a picture and a video of him talking and me holding my champagne like, look, oh my God, I can't believe Fallon said it. And so this past summer when I was going through my archives and I saw that, I sent it to him and I was just like, yo, we were destined to be, because we've had this connection. But it's a beautiful thing because I do think that's the way marketing and advertising is, that it is a part of our daily culture and the things we talk about and the ways that we express ourselves. And so that bit of storytelling has always felt very natural to me.
What's because it hasn't come out yet, tell me a little bit about the format of the show. We saw a bunch of people in an airplane hangar.
Yeah.
Pitching Southwest. You have 10 contestants.
Yes.
And where do you go from there?
Yes. So basically, I mean, it does mirror a lot of real life. We have an agency with creatives, 10 creatives, who are given a brief by a brand for a problem they're trying to solve, whether it is like the Southwest, getting extra leg room or any number of things. And the job of the contestants and these creatives is to come up with ideas that answer the brief. Now, if you work in advertising and marketing, you know that sometimes you have a really good idea and it doesn't hit the brief exactly, but you're gonna try to shoehorn your way in there, you know what I mean? Or it's like you're gonna hit the brief in every single point, but the idea is gonna fail because it just wasn't interesting enough. And so that's really the point of the show, is that every week there are contestants who are battling to have the best creative idea of the week.
Yeah. Well, okay, then how did you find the contestants? Or how are the contestants found? Because I know that they're from all over the country.
Yes.
All different, I don't know, I think there's like a DJ, there's an entrepreneur, they're from all over.
Yes, they're
different
from
parts
all
of life.
over. And I think that's actually the beauty of the show, is that the folks who are cast on it aren't necessarily from our industry.
Right.
In that there is one person who's a marketing professor, but even that, it's like he's not in practice, he's in theory, right? And
I can see the producers already think let's see if this guy.
Exactly. Well, you'll see. But the great thing is that I actually do believe in this concept because I believe that ideas come from a lot of different places, and that especially in today's world where we all have access to our phones and to platforms where we can create content and stories, it's like, look, the idea can come from anywhere. However, does it hit the benchmarks of a brief? Does it hit what the company actually needs it to do and to perform? And so part of this is that, it wasn't just about pitching the idea, but, the ones that rose to the top, let's say the top 2 or 3, we would actually put into the world and see if they actually work.
Okay.
And then based on that, you have one grand winner.
Well, that leads me to some of the contestants, the brands. This is maybe I understand absolutely why anyone would want to sign up and try to be a contestant. I'm less clear on on some brands I can understand, but this, as someone who's been a marketer inside brands, speaking of risk, how did you find the brands? Was it like a rush to the door to get in on this show, or was it convincing them that this is actually a good idea to participate?
Well, here's what's so funny about it is that, when I was CMO, I wish there had been a show like this. Well, I would have signed up so fast.
See, that says something to you about you as a CMO, though, because so many are risk averse.
That's true. However, I can't think of another platform where you're able to talk about your brand and the things that you're trying to do for a whole hour, and that is entertainment. Look, we're all in this world of product placement, and you know it. We've seen it for a long time. Look, I did it myself many, many times, whether it was X Factor, we had the Pepsi can sitting on the desk and you're hoping somebody pays attention to that blue can that's in there and goes buy something.
Yeah.
But if I'd had a whole hour where I had people talking about the brand and trying to solve some issue about it, that would have been fantastic.
This is funny because I actually, for a separate story, I was talking to John Solomon. He's the CMO at Therabody, who's included in the show. And I asked him at the end of our conversation about the other thing, why did you do this? What made you want to do this? And let's see how similar it is to what you just said. He said, it's a risk, but I think you have to take risks. This is a new show, but the fact that it's with Jimmy and NBC is really getting behind it. could be a lot of fun, and getting an entire episode about your brand is pretty much a marketer's dream.
I mean, honestly. It's like, and I think some of the criticism that I've seen has been like, oh, it's going to be like one big infomercial. And I'm like, I guarantee you it's not, Because what we're really doing is the engagement of the exercise is what is fascinating. I compare this to when all of the finding a new music star shows entered, whether it was American Idol or X Factor or any one of the Voice, which is that all of us became A&Rs. All of us did. You sat on your couch, you watched somebody sing, all of a sudden you knew terms like pitchy. Unless you were in a studio, nobody ever said pitchy outside of the studio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, look, and I've had some many nights in the studio, but anyway, that's a different story. However, in this example, it is similar, which is that the audience who's going to watch this, I believe, are going to be as invested as the contestants. And
we're all creative directors now?
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's, I'm sorry for the marketers and advertising people out there, but that's what's going to happen. Everybody's going to think they can do this job,
Yeah.
But I also think that that's a great thing, because it's not as if, Idol and The Voice killed the music industry, We found some stars in there. And so why can't that happen for this industry?
Well, I think that the unspoken tension there is, showing how the sausage is made in a way with brands and advertising. And I've seen a couple screeners, and the entertainment is kind of like, everyone's been in meetings, whether it's marketing or advertising or not, where it's like an ideas meeting, right? And there's no bad ideas. There are bad ideas. And
there are some
but it's
ugly
fine
ideas.
in the safety of the comfort zone of the trust tree of the boardroom in your own office. That's not, millions of people aren't seeing that terrible idea or how you get to the good idea.
Well, William Hung didn't know people were going to hear him sing either.
I guess he's
he's
auditioning.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of marketers about the concept or how they define brand entertainment. This is kind of brand as entertainment.
Yeah.
This advertising as the entertainment itself. What to you makes the advertising process, the making of it, this pitch process, and that so entertaining? What's the entertainment there? What do you think is the real kind of jewel of the show? Because to me, that's where just seeing people. I hate to say seeing people struggle is funny, but it's.
It is funny.
But it is funny to see that idea, that whole idea. That's like I said at the top. It looks easy. We can all see an ad and be like, that's terrible.
I know.
How did that get made? Yeah, that's the other thing. How does that get made? Well, this is showing how this gets made. So how do you think about that entertainment value of that whole process?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that again, it's like the reality of it all, which is that I have been on both sides of that, where I was the person who pitched ideas. I've also been the person who judges the idea, right? And I think that's the whole stress of it all, is that you come up with an idea in some fashion. It's like, it could be spontaneous, you can think it's the most brilliant thing, and then it's like, ugh, you mess up the pitch. You had that one line, you had that one idea, you're seeing the faces of people you're pitching to, and their eyes get dim or they start being distracted, and you're just like, damn it, I'm losing them. You try to pivot, and then boom, you lose the whole thing. Or it's like some little idea, and you engage people, and then it builds as you're pitching. It is I would say the adrenaline of that. Yeah. Now, the next step is actually putting out into the world. So let's say that your pitch has been approved and your idea is greenlit, and now you put out into the world and it flops. Or it becomes the biggest thing, and now you got people writing think pieces about it. It's like that, to me, is the tension and the drama which comes along with the show, is that you get to see the sausage being made, but it doesn't feel separate from you. It's like, I can't wait to see people, tag us in their concepts that are like, oh, the person who won, I could have done that better, and this is my idea.
Yeah. I guess, how we talk about how maybe this is where it's going. Everyone's got their phones, everyone's got their ideas. This is another example of that, overused term, user-generated content in a way. These are the regular people pitching these ideas. How, from your experience in the rooms, not on TV, how different was the show format and the concept How different and similar was it from the actual work?
Yeah, I would say it's very similar because, especially having been a marketer and a CMO, when an agency comes with ideas and it's their job to convince you of the one to buy and put a lot of money behind, it was the same process. You see people who are really excited about their thing and then fumble because nerves get in their way, right? Or you realize in the moment that like, oh my gosh, I missed that one point in the brief, Or like in the moment as I'm giving feedback, whether in my real life or on this show, it was very similar where, you have to be quick with it, right? It's like I have to evaluate very quickly whether or not this is going to hit the brief and therefore should move forward. Because also the other challenge is that these are real brands that are putting real money into these ideas. This is not
theoretical.
This is not just theater. It's like an idea that is born in this show lives out in the real world. And in fact, I think this is a great experiment for us all because it is going to be real time. And so when you watch an episode and you see the product or the idea or the jingle or the ad that has been created, you will see that in the real world immediately.
We're going to see stuff about
you'll see things go. You'll see things go live, and so you'll see the the plane and the wrap, and it's like so that will be in the real world, and we're all going to see how it does.
Yeah.
Because if the brands that we work with see real ROI, then we've proven a point. By the way, Jimmy didn't know any of these terms. I had to teach him a lot. Okay. And you could tell him I said it, okay? Now he knows LTO. He'll just drop it in random conversations. ROI, Perfect. KPIs. He's just dropping all kind of,
Nice.
And I'm like, what does KPI mean, Jimmy? The pop quiz all the time.
Well, I'd say the balance between reality and the show, you've definitely perfected the sort of face of when something's not good, but still being like, that's nice.
Let me tell you something. This face don't play poker, baby.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out which ones you liked, but based on that.
I'm pretty immediate with my feedback.
How was you spoke about the challenge, a couple of the challenges there. I wanted to ask you about maybe more the personal challenges of translating your sort of marketer brain to the show itself in this format.
Yeah.
I know, I can't remember if it was in the trailer, but there's a part where contestants are eliminated, and Jimmy had a hard time with that a little bit. He was like, "This is the hardest part."
Man.
And I was wondering, for you, what was the hardest part? Like translating that experience into a format like this.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing is that it's also great that Jimmy and I sort of are the yin and the yang of it, you know, in that.
Are you bad cop?
I play bad cop a lot, but only because Jimmy loves every idea. Like literally, he's like a big puppy. You know what I mean? He's just like, everything's great, and I'm like, no, that sucked. I don't know what you're talking about, And the thing, I think that giving criticism with love is the best way to be.
Sure.
And so there were certainly, the moments where he and I are trying to figure out, okay, which idea is going forward? Because there can only be one, we can't choose everybody. And so that was definitely hard, but it is, again, something that I am used to from 25 years in this business, of having to make the tough calls. And sometimes that call, then rests on you to say, okay, this idea over that idea. And sometimes it is hard to articulate why. That it is a gut feeling or it's an instinct that drives you and says, you know what, this is gonna work and not that.
What about this, whether it's how the show worked or how it ends up playing out, what surprised you most about
oh, gosh. Well, here's the thing is that, again, ideas are not just ideas. Ideas are born of people. Are born of experience. And so one of the pieces of feedback I would constantly give our creatives was that put yourself in the work. But I've said that to my teams for as long as I have been a leader in this business, which is that when you have a great idea, it really elevates and turns because you put your own personal experience into it. You put your heart into it. And so when ideas are too antiseptic, it actually doesn't work. And I realized that it is a risk because none of us want to be rejected.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you put yourself in the work and then somebody says that's not good, now all of a sudden you feel like you've been rejected. And that's the danger, right?
Yeah.
But, it's like, to quote Erykah Badu, it's like, look, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, look, we're all sensitive about it. And so that was probably the most surprising of it, which is that there were so many good ideas that were hard to criticize or to make better. Because you can't be as exacting as I would in a boardroom where I'm like, not a good idea, no, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that. Got to give extra context and help so that in the next challenge, there's feedback that can be used to get to an even better idea.
What were the conversations with the ongoing throughout the show? I understand we talk about like why they would join, but throughout the show, the conversations with the marketers, because I mean, they come on to the show. They're sitting there watching the pitches along with you and Jimmy. So what were your conversations with them throughout the process? And then second to that, what did that, I mean, I know you are a marketer, but for these specific brands, what did that kind of tell you, this experience throughout these episodes, about how they're navigating just this, the speed of culture, the speed of which they have to keep all of our attention, which comes back to the reason they're on the show in the first place. What were your conversations with the marketers like throughout this process?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, so this is a funny thing. And again, like it was hilarious to me in the moment because I didn't mean it as an insult. But Jimmy and I were talking prior to shooting anything. And he was like, "Is there anything that concerns you, about this show or about the concept? Like, you say it now, basically, so we can fix it." And I was like, "Look, I am a real marketer. I have 25 years of a career. I'm in the damn Hall of Fame. Okay." I'm like, you can't, I can get applause for that. I said, you know what, and this is about the industry that I love, that I'm a part of, people I care about. I was like, look, my reputation is at risk. Like I need this to work. And I did not say that to not a single housewife, okay? Like when I joined the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I didn't tell anybody my reputation was at stake, okay? But to Jimmy Fallon, I was like, look, you gotta make sure that my reputation doesn't go down. And to me, that was the center of it. So other marketers who show up, other CMOs who came on the show, that was the conversation. Which is that like I am concerned about the work that you do. This has to succeed because this isn't just about whether or not this piece of work is like plastered everywhere on the planet. But I think even in one of the episodes, it was a CMO and the president of the company, and the president turns to the CMO and says, your job's on the line. And he wasn't kidding, you know what I mean? And so that tension of, this being, yes, entertaining and it's a TV show, but at the same time, it has real life consequences for budgets and for careers and, for reputations is important. And I do think that there is a wonderful sort of like development about being on the show as a marketer or as a brand because the world is moving even faster. I think after 2020, I don't know that there was a marketer alive who could trust a 3-year plan. It's like all of our strat plans went out the window.
And it's like, 3 months.
Look, okay, it might be 2 weeks, okay? Because the truth is that like that's when the greats were separated from the goods. It's like if you could pivot quickly, you could change based on what was happening in culture. If you were paying attention to how people are feeling and could adjust your brand to that emotion, that's who was winning. And so the marketers who are on this show are in that right now. And so utilizing this very moment in time, how do you use it to expand the business that you're working on?
Like that, like kind of walking the balance between, like you're having fun with a serious business.
Yes.
And well, and speaking of striking a balance, it's, you are, to your point, Hall of Famer marketer, also reality show star.
I mean, hello.
This show.
We can have it all, ladies and gentlemen.
This show is a perfect amalgamation of those two pursuits or personas.
Yeah.
How did you how did you find navigating that, or how do you think about bringing those two parts of your life together?
Well, but here's the thing, and y'all lean in a little bit to this part, okay? You already know the amount of people who had something to say when I joined the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Okay, people who were just like, why would you do this? You're ruining your career. And I can understand why they would be terrified for
risk.
me.
We go back to risk.
Go back to risk. But I have always been in the business of following my intuition and my gut. It's like whether it was the call about going forward with a campaign idea or leaving a job and getting another one, because Lord knows I've made quite a few jumps now, okay? There have always been questions about why I do what I do or the reasons why I do it. Now, I will tell you that in retrospect, it's like success has many authors, right? Everybody wants to say, oh, I knew she would always get it right. I knew she would do it. Yeah, when I left Apple to go to Uber, nobody was saying that. People were like, are you out of your mind? Why would you do that? Yeah. And the truth of the matter is that the journey that I have been on personally is not just me talking the talk, but walking the walk. That I am following my own intuition on what is going to be right for me the next step. Mm-hmm. And so when I joined the Housewives, part of it was that, look, I knew I was done with what had been a storied corporate career.
Yeah.
And I needed something else that was going to extend my own story. And I looked at that landscape and I thought, well, why can't we explore a persona which it is not seen on TV right now? Mm-hmm. It's like, yes, there are women in their 40s and 50s who are juggling all kinds of things, relationships and children and elderly parents and relationships with each other and careers. But look, I'm a special breed, okay? It's like, look, there aren't very many of us who are 9-to-5 corporate girlies who are baddies and self-made, who get the light. And so I was like, look, I'm going to go do that. And in so doing, it is how then a greater audience was able to see not just who I am from a personal standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint, and ultimately how Jimmy saw me anyway.
Nice. Well, listen, I look forward to seeing the rest of the show. Thanks for being here, Boz.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thanks for being here,
everybody.
Thank
you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.